All right. Hi, Liz. Thank you so much for being here. I love these conversations because I love to hear what all of our students and graduates are up to and, how things have shifted for you since you started this journey. So let's start with your story before you started working with us here at the Integrative Women's Health Institute and the Women's Health Coach certification. What were you up to before and what inspired you to start this journey?
Yeah, well, thanks so much, for having me and for the opportunity. Before I started the health coaching certification, which was back in November, I'm also a holistic nutritionist, so I'm board certified in holistic nutrition, and I've been doing that since 2018. And I started doing that, I think, how so many of us get into this integrative and holistic world in my own experience with my health and having a lot of health issues that were new to me after I had my second son. And nobody could figure out what was going on. It was kind of like these mysterious symptoms that were intruding on my daily life. And the good news was there was nothing really wrong with me, but the bad news was I was really struggling to get through my days. So I went down the
Well,
path.
people hear that so often, right? Oh, everything's fine. Your labs look fine, right? And that's where the journey often begins.
Yeah. And for me, they kept attributing it to anxiety. And that was really frustrating because I have a history of anxiety and depression from childhood trauma. So I have been in therapy for so long. Like, I know what my anxiety feels like. If anybody who has anxiety is very familiar with like their true anxiety and something really physical manifesting in their body. So it was really frustrating to think like I didn't feel heard. It
Mhm.
didn't feel like anybody was really listening to me. Um, and I was in therapy at the same time as all this was happening. And so my therapist was the one who actually suggested, maybe you need to see like an integrative provider. And she had the name of a doctor. And that's who I made an appointment with. It took me like forever to get in. But there's really before and after that appointment that just led me down this road of making these connections as to what food was doing to my body, what my lifestyle was doing, how I could really start to support my health. And the transformation was so drastic that I actually didn't believe it. So I would go back and forth. I would like go back to the way I was eating before. I had some food sensitivities due to digestive issues. And then I would, start all over again because I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. And I was so fascinated by that. And I became so curious. So that's what led me down the road to become a holistic nutritionist because I knew that there were women like me out there who were, just so hopeless and they have been trying everything except for this, and it wasn't really easily available. I believe in medicine. My husband is a physician, so I went to all the doctors thinking they could fix me, and I don't
Mhm.
believe that they didn't want to fix me.
Oh,
They just
sure.
couldn't. Like, it just the
Yeah.
resources, the time. There was nothing medically wrong with me. So that's how I became a holistic nutritionist. I decided after being a stay-at-home mom, I was going to go back to school. I started doing that, and then I started practice in 2018.
Hmm.
Um, and I was kind of like the traveling holistic nutritionist. I would go to people's homes. I didn't do anything virtual. I wanted to be in person so badly. I really wanted that in person connection.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so
That's
I
how I
did
started
that.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wasn't familiar with like a virtual scenario at that point. So,
Yeah.
anyhow, I did that for a few years, and my dream was to open up my own office and serve the community locally. I had really good referrals from physicians who were trying to get their patients better, physical therapists. So, I was really seeing anybody and everybody at that point, and I finally could open up an office, and I opened it up. I signed my lease on March 1st of 2020.
Oh,
So,
no.
and I saw one client, and then
Yeah.
the whole world, obviously, we all know what happened there. And I had to close because I do live in New Jersey. And so anybody who wasn't, emergency type of practitioner had
Mhm.
to close. So I had to close my office. And then my kids were also home. Their school
Mm.
closed. It didn't reopen for a year and a half
Wow.
fully. So they were home. And so my priorities, where I thought I was going to be shifting into my business and work outside the home, I really had to rein it back in.
Mhm.
But in hindsight, I think that was just such a blessing for me because it led me down this path of, obviously, my stress was really high again. My old symptoms were starting to return, but my diet hadn't changed. So I was like, wait a minute. I thought it was food this whole time, and food definitely helped me, but there's something else going on. And as I dipped my toe back into working with clients, I was starting to get referrals from therapists. So
Mhm.
then I had women coming to me who were working on trauma or long term stress, and they had digestive issues. And so that really became something that I specialized in, is the
Mhm.
digestive issues that come along with high stress and trauma, and just
Mhm.
trying to support the body in doing that. So that's what I did before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Got it. Mhm.
so then I found I have to do continuing ed. So I did like the female wellness female athlete
Yeah.
wellness program.
Yeah.
And just to get hours, I was like
Yeah.
trying to flip through. I'm like, oh, I'll do this. Like, this sounds
Yeah.
good. I'm working with women. Let me try this. I have a
Yeah.
daughter, so this will help me. And I loved that course. It was
Um,
so robust. There was so much information. And so then I was on the list,
mhm.
for the Integrative,
For all the
Women's
emails and
Health
all of that.
Institute. And so I was getting emails then about health coaching, but it wasn't really something that I was interested in because I was in this holistic nutrition space and I didn't really know what health coaching was. Um, but I knew that over time, it started to get really like monotonous because I can only do so much as a holistic practitioner in New Jersey. So I could educate them on the digestive system. I could educate them on things, but I can't make recommendations. I can't like tell
Sorry,
them.
Liz, we lost you for just a second.
Oh,
So that's okay. Back up for 1 second. We
yeah,
can always edit.
yeah.
So we were landed on, so you had taken the female athlete wellness course to get some nutrition hours and found it that was a great robust course,
Hmm.
but you were just interested in that. It wasn't the root of your practice, but you were also concurrently realizing that, hey, overall health and wellness is not just nutrition, because you were
Hmm.
feeling stress, digestion, and getting all these referrals from mental health professionals, understanding the interplay between stress and digestive symptoms. Then you were trying to expand this, but in New Jersey, it got a little difficult. Talk about that.
It did, yes. So they have been trying to um, have licensure laws
Mhm.
here, which would
Mhm.
prevent me from practicing as a
Mhm.
holistic provider. And even I wouldn't even be able to use my title. So that
Mm.
led me to actually become board certified because the board certified in holistic nutrition title is actually trademarked. So I did
Okay.
that and thinking like, okay, that'll at least protect my title and I can keep educating women. But education wasn't enough over
Mm.
time, and it really started to get, it wasn't fun anymore for me. It was like
Mhm.
the same thing over and over again. I really couldn't dig into the unique issues that my clients were having. And either they were working with me, they would feel better, they would go on their way, and I wouldn't see them again, or they would feel better and then they'd call me 2 months later because they were back to where they were before because they didn't have any really like long lasting skills to use.
Yeah.
I couldn't really get to the root of and their barriers. And like now I have language. That was like one thing that the health coaching certification gave me, is a lot of language over what I was experiencing before, and it was really their barriers. Um, and
Yeah.
so I didn't have that education. So I just kept seeing these emails about health coaching come across, and I didn't really know what a health coach was. I think my preconceived notion was that a health coach just took like a real quick certification and then they could like suggest supplements and practice outside their scope, which I'm learning that is true. Like that,
Right.
they're
Yeah.
like selling an MLM and they're calling themselves a health coach. And that I had that stereotype in my head. But the information that I was getting from you wasn't that stereotype. So I thought, I don't know, maybe, this is something that could help my clients. And it was really a pivotal moment where it was like, am I going to keep practicing? Because this doesn't feel fulfilling to me right now. I want my clients to get better and they're not. Something that I'm doing isn't clicking. So I just
Mhm.
decided, I was really curious. And I decided that since this was special, like specific to women, and it
Mhm.
did have that women's nutrition component of it, if I did it, I wouldn't really be wasting my time because I would also get that education along with the health coaching.
Right.
But it ended up being like the complete opposite, that the health coaching was the thing that I needed from the very beginning. And just it was just putting language to everything that I was struggling with my clients, everything that I was struggling with myself over the last 3 years, just being in business and the pandemic and my own stress levels and inner critic. And
Mm.
so just that first half of the course became life changing to both me and my clients.
So, really, you ultimately came to this for your own healing initially,
Mhm.
this work of integrative holistic health. And so I think a lot of people that come to our institute are drawn by the fact that, women's health is so much what we're about. But so many people in integrative health have a story of their own unmet health needs
Mhm.
because we have this perspective that, you go to the doctor, someone's going to fix you, as you said. And for some people that works. Like there's an acute or even a chronic, well-managed like strategy plan in place that kind of manages the circumstances. But for most things that are a bit more vague, right? This interplay between anxiety and digestive issues, like our conventional system just doesn't handle that so much. So even if someone doesn't have formal education in healthcare, coming through then their own journey and then layering on top of that the education. And I think what you've really demonstrated is that as an adult learner, you can start this kind of practice from scratch, number one.
Mhm.
And then number two, what we always think we need first and what people tend to go to first and why we include so much functional nutrition in the program is we always think we need a sort of integrative version of what we see in conventional medicine. So like more supplements or a different dietary plan or something like that. And yes, all of those things are valuable tools. But I love that you're really saying here that ultimately the real work and the real thing that actually helps people long term move the needle is getting to the coaching. What are their barriers to change? What's their own inner critic constantly saying to them? Where are their boundaries issues? And this is not therapy. It's really how people on a day-to-day basis choose or even have awareness to how to take care of their health. So I love that you had that light bulb moment. So talk a little bit about what this program in health coaching really gave you that we don't get, even if we do a lot of integrative clinical training. What is the next layer, health coaching? How has that benefited your practice and yourself?
So I think the biggest thing is taking that vision of what the individual thinks their optimal health should look like for them
Mm-hmm.
and turning it inward instead of looking outward at a photo or a list of things that say define health to you, and
Mm-hmm.
really turning inward and creating your own definition of what healthy would look like, and then funneling it down to goals, and then funneling it down to those tiniest next first steps. That has been the biggest, the most helpful tool for both my clients and myself in
Mm-hmm.
just business and starting and getting this practice even farther, and more successful, and then helping my clients to be more successful. They love, and I didn't understand that they would love this, those little tasks that they can check off that they have actually thought of themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something. I had one client, she was trying to get more movement and she was just curious about yoga. And the action steps were like, Google yoga teachers.
Yeah.
buy a new yoga outfit. If that's what's going to motivate you, that's what she's like, I think I would love to have a new yoga outfit. That was a task to check off. And
Yeah.
I thought, well, that seems kind of silly. But she was like, I love this. Like, she loved just making those little steps. And we got so much farther in 2 weeks than me just saying, like, here's your digestive protocol and this is what you should do in the next 2 weeks. And I really couldn't work through, well, what about, like, all the barriers they have? What about time? What about this voice in their head? So the second thing is the inner critic work. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, the funneling of the vision and then the inner critic. All of my clients are working with a therapist, or I'm referring them to a therapist, every
Mm-hmm.
single one of them. So
Mm-hmm.
that is really my niche now. I'm working with women who are, working on long-term stress or trauma, and they've either come to me through a therapist referral or I'm referring them to a therapist.
That's
But
great.
that
So
therapy
needed. Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, isn't enough to work through those daily things. So I'm just kind of helping what they're already doing in therapy to quiet their mind a little bit, or at least put those voices in the back seat so that they can work on this health and wellness part of it.
Well, and I think that, it's one thing to have the mental health therapy tools and also the experience of unraveling the trauma and all of the work that people do in mental health therapy, in the same way that there's a lot of work people do in clinical or integrative physical medicine
Mm-hmm.
that's valuable, whether it's physical therapy treatments or nutritionist protocols. But what clinical medicine doesn't have in either mental or physical realm is those day-to-day health behavior change,
Mm-hmm.
which is really where people take the theoretical and the treatment strategies and integrate it with, well, okay, I would love to do X, Y, and Z, but gosh, I can't even think of the first three things I need to do to even start going to yoga. Like, my therapist told me I should go to yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what does that mean? There's 100 kinds of yoga, and some of the studios are kind of far away, and I have to pick up my kid at the time that there's a practice. So I think that's so valuable about health coaching. And we really underestimate the power of that to make a change for people, and the fact that you're seeing that. So
Yeah.
now you've got these tools, you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing the difference that they make. If you take a step back for a minute and think about before you started the Women's Health Coach Certification Program, I'm sure there were some hesitations, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about what those hesitations were and how you overcame them. And then kind of looking back, what do you think about that now?
Yeah, the main hesitation was just not knowing what a health coach did, and
Mm.
not knowing that I would really be doing exactly what I was trying to do the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I really have been
Yeah.
trying to bridge, therapy and putting what my clients learn in therapy into practice in their real life, and to help them use a healthy lifestyle and healthy habits to support what they're doing in therapy. Like, my goal has always been to bridge that gap. And I just didn't understand that that is, by definition, what a health coach does, is
Yeah.
bridge, is being a guide for that transformation and trying to, implement these daily habits and work through barriers. So it really was just the misunderstanding of that. I just think I, like, saw a health coach on a piece of paper, and it was just, and I hate to say it, but this is being truthful, a less educated version of what I was already doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I,
And
I
that's
really
just what
do
I thought it
think
was.
I really do think that's an important thing to just say the
Yeah.
truth of. I think a lot of people who come to this, whether they come through their own health journey or from a kind of clinical integrative mental health or even just traditional medicine, there's this idea that if you become a health coach, you're actually like stepping down.
Mhm.
And the reality is, having been doing this for 15 or so years now, we see physicians become health coaches and say that that makes a bigger change in their patients. So I think the fact that we have such a hierarchical mindset in medicine is a very, in and of itself, sort of a masculine perspective, like that one of these things has to be more or less valuable than the other. But
Mhm.
that's just, of course, how we were all trained, right? That's the system we're in. Like certain practitioners are higher than other practitioners.
Mhm.
You know, I've had colleagues in physical therapy say, well, you have to practice to your highest license. Well, what does that mean? Why is one of these skill sets higher than the other? And so I think the more we help people understand, and I think just by being here and explaining that perspective today, it's so valuable, because the more we help people understand like the deep value of health coaching, and that it's just as valuable as any other member, and
Mhm.
probably more important than almost any other member of the medical team, because otherwise you can have recommendations till you're blue in the face, but people have to be actually doing them, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like people had to be doing them. And I only am trained in so much. So how can I give them the resources to learn the other areas that they either need support in or want to be curious about?
Yeah. And I think that shows us that it always takes a team, right?
Mhm.
Like everyone only knows so much, and we can't, there's no like, there's never going to be this like one magic wand when you're dealing with complex chronic illnesses like you are in your practice. You know, people with anxiety, people with depression, people with digestive issues related to these things. Anxiety and depression isn't just like one little micro symptom that needs the perfect pill or supplement or dietary plan or even exercise plan. It's always kind of a full body approach, because there's sleeplessness involved, there's
Mhm.
work stressors, there's financial stressors, there's relationship issues. You know, there's always has to be some level of a team approach, and almost everyone in health coaching in our community works with, while they may be pretty niched practices, people have complicated issues, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So awesome. I really love your story. So tell me a little bit about your experience inside of the program, and kind of your favorite thing, you know, just participating in the program.
Yeah. My favorite thing and the thing that made me ultimately say, like, this is what I want is really the connection. It's the
Mm.
mentorship, the retreats, my accountability partners that I've had, all of that connection, the little pop up trainings that happen. I just went to one a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
Um, I have loved having that type of. I think it's the thing, like if I go back to, I was telling my story, like I really wanted this like in-person practice because I wanted this human
Mm.
connection. And I ended up going virtual because of COVID and closing that office. But it's like this, I love the human connection part of it. So it's
Mhm.
a real difference between sitting behind a screen and taking an online course, which is great. I mean, that education is invaluable, but being able to practice it, being able to be vulnerable with other women, especially as an entrepreneur and as somebody working on their own health and wellness, and then practicing coaching skills, all the different layers of connection is the reason why I signed up. And it's the reason why I've loved it. And I don't want it to end. I'm like, oh, can I just like,
Yeah.
can I
You
push
can
it off like a little longer? Can I
you
just
can
keep
stay
chatting with
around.
my mentor
Right.
a little longer? I don't want to end with her. I want to have these meetings with her. I
Right.
want to go to another retreat. I mean, at first I was like, oh my God, you know, 4 hours for 2 days, 2 weekends in a row. And now I'm like, oh, I only have one left. I'm kind of sad about that. I hope I get to do more after that.
You
So,
can. We'll make it happen. But yes,
yeah.
yes, I know. Excellent. So if someone's on the fence right now, what would you say in terms of why you recommend this program, and any last thoughts you have on what it's done for yourself or your practice?
Yeah, I just think that number one, the education is really in depth. There's scientific support for every single thing that we learn. So you cannot dispute what you're learning.
Mm.
You have something to back it up. I think that the connections, the support, the mentorship is really the reason why people should join. I have not found this in any other program. It's not been offered in any other program. So I just think that that's really amazing. And it's just helped me put some boundaries around my practice.
Mm.
It's helped me create a better container to support my clients. It feels really authentic. I don't feel like I'm just doing what I should be doing based on a little, you know, Instagram post that I saw or something like that, which is what I was doing before in trying to
Mm.
run my business. I feel like it helps me run my business as well, and that wasn't really part of the program, but by default, it helps me do that too. So those three things, I think, are the biggest reasons why anybody should join. And there's a lot of options with the costs. Like I did monthly payments over paying in full, so I know the cost can be prohibitive. That was definitely something I considered, but I will say it was worth every penny that I spent. I never looked back once I started.
That's great. And yeah, while our business training is sort of worked in through more those passive modules, and we don't have the same level of mentorship as we do for your coaching skills, we do have weekly calls and we do continue that business mentorship. And I think the reason we've done it a bit more informally is that what I've learned here and what's so fun about having done this for so long now is everyone's business is so unique. We don't give you like this cookie cutter, you got to do it this way, because some people really do like that in-person interaction. And while I know COVID derailed yours, maybe someday you'll circle back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Or people like to go deep and one-on-one with people, whereas other people want to educate millions of followers. And there's so much flexibility in that, which I really enjoy helping people cultivate. So it feels more organic and it feels more in line with what really works for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. I love your practice. I think it's so needed. The mental health, physical health integration work is so needed because right now it's still so separate, even within integrative medicine. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And thank you so much for being such an active member in our community, because that's the thing that keeps our community great is everyone's in it for years. So you'll be around for years and years to come, and no need to lose connection with your master coach and
Yeah.
your colleagues. And just thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.